we're going to get throughout this hour, so hang with us. We'll give you the breakdowns as soon as they occur. I'm Chris Spags, joined today by my pal, one of the better minds in the NBA world of analysis, Fast Eddie Fair. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's Friday. Real fast before we get into everything, I just want to say on the air, if you missed yesterday or you missed Eddie's Twitter feed, Eddie's a good boy champ did unfortunately go into the quiet night. So just if you want to give your shout outs to Eddie, I didn't realize it until we were talking beforehand, but I just want to personally say on the air, we're all with you, Eddie, and I know how tough of a loss it is. So everybody support Eddie, give him your love, be extra nice today too. But
everybody,
want to say
everybody's been outstanding. So nothing but love for everybody. Absolutely.
So there you go. So we appreciate it, and I see in the chat people saying their support too. So please, we are normal human beings too. So please throw your love to Eddie. Weird transition, but we are presented by Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy, another thing you should support as well. They are the top premier app to build a lineup made out of props of only top-tier athletes. And a weekend like this, in which another company is doing a big sports betting event, get your own taste of the sports betting life with Thrive Fantasy. Pick 10 props out of the 20 and the less probable a prop is to occur. The more points it's worth, and therein lies the game theory. So go to bit.ly/Osmo right now to download the app. Get $10 on any $10 deposit, $20 on a $100 deposit, or $50 on $200 or more. So go check that out now. Click the link, download, deposit, get that money right away. It is not a slow release. You get it immediately. This is one guy who was affected by news today of Dennis Smith being out. Let's talk about the prop, Eddie. Luka Doncic over under 19.5 points. Equal shading on this one. I would take the over on it. I have him at 20.1. How are you feeling about Luka tonight?
Yeah, again, I think that's an excellent line, so I will somewhat hesitantly take the over as well. But that's a good number.
Yeah, I think that's about as fair as it gets. So go ahead, check out Thrive now. Download the link, take a look, and support the shows that help us keep the lights on here. We do appreciate it, and we do appreciate you, Thrive. Eddie, we got a bunch of news. We got Giannis out. We have Eric Bledsoe in. We have Joel Embiid possibly out, but we're waiting for the news there. He is a game-time decision along with JJ Redick. Sure, there's other items I'm missing here. Which news items are you looking the most at right now, and which ones are you waiting for?
Yeah, let me catch up with exactly what we have. Projections are updated. I had old set wanted to change one more thing with Bledsoe in and all the news we just got. So final update of my rankings is now in. So yeah, let's talk about this becomes the best game of Daddy like post lock that we've had in quite some time, with two monster ownership exciting games landing right at 7 p.m. with obviously the Bucks, the Hawks, the Wizards, and the 76ers firing off right at lock there. So yeah, I guess I already had some interest in what's obviously a really nice Ben Simmons spot here. I think he is the first person to go to in the event. You get no Joel Embiid, which again, we should have that news sometime soon. Again, we're fortunate that all this questionable news, most of it anyway, is landing right at 7 o'clock. I do think Simmons is the most likely way to look there. I would probably, if you're looking for the value guy to fill in, rather play Muscala a little bit more than Jonah Bolden. Again, they're both priced extremely well, and I like them both quite a bit. There's a real superfluity. There is a massive amount of good value on the slate, especially if Embiid goes out. When I get a second, I'll try to put together some sort of massive risk, but I do want to touch on all of it. Muscala, just a slightly safer play and a slightly higher upside play for me in what is a great spot. And again, you're happy for everyone in the game because taking Embiid out moves this game from where it was around a 12-point line to, being closer to, I'd say 8 or so. So there's definitely a better chance that this game stays close. So Embiid being out should make you feel better about not just your 76ers, obviously Simmons and Butler. The first two names we're going to look at, I like Simmons a little more than Butler looking at that, counting the price. But also any shares you happen to have of Trae Young, or certainly John Collins, whose rebounding upside now becomes much better. The odds of him getting randomly fouled out come down pretty significantly when you take Embiid off the court, which is, a real bugaboo if you were thinking about playing John Collins. I would like him a lot more in that situation. I'd like Dwayne Dedmon a lot more. The only person I would like less, actually, is Alex Len. I would have had a good bit of interest in Alex Len, especially at $4,200 in this game. I kind of like the game environment. Real chance that due to fouls, his time on the court becomes necessary. And just that price had become low enough, and with all the other bigs and big value with Ursan and the guys from this game, and even Kyle O'Quinn and all the other bigs who are out there as possible plays we can take tonight for value, I would have had a lot of interest there. I'd be less interested in him if Embiid was out, actually. So, Trae Young has turned into a much more consistent player. At least his results are coming out much more consistent. Again, if you're trying to stack this game, him floating around 6K still makes perfect sense. I still do agree with you that I would prefer Hoarder to Bembry, where they're priced pretty much the same. I think Bembry is a few hundred more on FanDuel and a few hundred less on DraftKings.
Yep.
So on DraftKings, I think it makes some sense, but I certainly would be much more a fan of Hoarder on FanDuel. Although I think he's a shooting guard on FanDuel, I'm almost certain, and that makes it a little stickier because there's a lot of exceptional shooting guard value.
I don't think it's today, but there's going to be a 50-point Kevin Huerter day, I think, before both Prince and Bazemore get back. He's just shooting so much, and his shot's good, so it's weird. He's shooting well from three, shooting terribly from inside the line. 40% from the floor overall. Very strange.
Yeah, and the other guy we obviously want to talk about is Jeremy Lin. I probably have to still prefer him, again, at very similar prices, although different positions, especially on FanDuel, to Kevin Huerter, just because he's been an exceptional fantasy producer for a while now. Like, he looks good. He looks like Linsanity, Jeremy Lin. He's had a number of lingering injuries, and I don't know how long it sticks, but he actually looks 100% to me for the first time in a while, and they've moved him up to a significant part of the rotation, where even on the back-to-back recently, with basically all hands on deck, you got him getting 33 minutes on the front half and 28 minutes on the back half, and just at his price of where he's $5,000, I think, on FanDuel, and 46 on DraftKings, and like 11 on Yahoo for what it's worth. I like him a lot at those prices, so that would be another guy I'd certainly be interested in, but a lot of this Hawks team in play. And then, of course, the 76ers again. Redick, if he's going to play, I'll actually like quite a bit of JJ Redick in this spot. Butler, obviously, my second guy after Simmons here. I would prefer, when you're only spending, I think it's $1,300 both sites to move from Butler to Simmons. I will prefer Simmons on both the main sites. Embiid against the Hawks, with this news coming out, if he, on the back end of the back-to-back the other day, we had that whole situation where I don't know if he's going to play. Oh my God, he's going to sit. I don't know, we're going to get screwed. And then he went out and scored 75. So, and, winning that night had something to do with having really, really low owned Joel Embiid. So because of the presence of all these other studs, having Harden still on the slate because of the absence of Giannis and how much attention that draws other places, and because of the fact that he's going to be questionable until, who knows, 620, 640, 645. If you get Joel Embiid as playing news, I would have a Joel Embiid plan to get yourself some Joel Embiid.
People in the YouTube chat, by the way, are saying he's courtside and flip-flops. So a bunch of people are saying, and apparently some verified Twitter accounts also. He's not going through his usual pregame.
Okay, so we will presume that Joel Embiid isn't going to play then.
Flip-flops. What a message to send with flip-flops.
He's got flip-flops. Oh, in that case. Okay, so we'll assume he won't play. So knowing he's not going to play, yeah, Simmons, the player I'm most excited about. The value I'd be most excited about. I assume we don't have Redick news yet. If we find out Redick is out, I still am going to be a bigger fan of playing TJ McConnell to Furkan Korkmaz. Now, that ends up being really site dependent because DK, he's actually strictly cheaper, and the ownership is again going to be 1/5 to 1/8 of what Furkan is, and I still have them projected very, very similarly. You certainly want Redick out before you go there. FanDuel, it's tough because I think TJ McConnell is still like $5,000, so that's a little bit sticky. So that ends up being site dependent, but all else being equal, I would still rather play TJ McConnell to Furkan Korkmaz in the news that Redick is out. With Embiid out, Redick himself makes a pretty sexy play if he plays, so keep an eye on that. You take Embiid out of there, that's a lot of usage to go around. Assuming Embiid doesn't play, Muscala, I think based on the time this all comes down and how long people have had to think about, Royce O'Neal and a lot of the day on the Bucks, I think he ends up being lower owned than those guys, and I do have him projected slightly higher. So I'm probably going to have Muscala as my favorite of the forward/big value that'll be remaining. Yeah, so that's that, and then we'll move to the second 7 o'clock game, the other one we certainly want to discuss here. My favorite play in this game now is Eric Bledsoe. Again, I obviously have one could describe as a fetish for playing guys when they're questionable and then decide to play. But long term, I'm pretty sure that's a profitable strategy. And then he's actually I like a little bit more than Middleton, A, in this matchup, and B, when we remove Giannis. There were a number of times last year where Giannis missed a few games at the end of the year. I think he's only missed 2 this year. But you would end up getting 50 out of Bledsoe and 50 out of Middleton. But due to the price and the fact that I think you have like half the ownership now, Eric Bledsoe going to be my favorite. Certainly between those two guys. Brogdon still makes lots of sense in lots of places. Doesn't quite carry the upside, but again, just tons of extra. He's going to pick up like 3% usage. Middleton gets closer to 8 or 9. Bledsoe gets 5 or 6, but Bledsoe's the lack of running out there in transition and Giannis flying down the court just moves Bledsoe's assist projection from 6 to 9.5 or something. So Bledsoe for the ownership and the price and the matchup and who I prefer more in the absence of Giannis. I like Bledsoe more than Middleton. Feel free to play all the Chris Middleton you want. He's now just grossly underpriced for an exceptional matchup. We've talked a lot this year about how teams playing against the Wizards haven't been owned up quite as much as they probably should have been. Bledsoe, and we can safely divest any plan for George Hill. Unfortunately, DJ Wilson is going to play, so that makes it a little less exciting to play Ersan, and it moves my minutes projection from him I had him up at 27, now down to about 21. Now, I still love him in this matchup, and I have him for right now 21 minutes, 24.8 fantasy points, and there's an upside on top of that. He makes a ton of sense on FanDuel, especially where you can drop him if it goes sideways, so I still like Ersan a lot, but I now have him projected for about 8 minutes less and about a fantasy point and a half less than Muscala, who I think might also end up lower owned, but that's a little bit tricky.
Ilya Silva currently projected for 24% ownership, and I'm trying to get him out of some lineups now because I agree with you. There's going to be a minute squeeze there.
Yeah, I still like him quite a bit, but and at that price, I wouldn't be like, I'm not super worried about it. I would just rather have Muscala, who I like a little bit more, and I do think ends up being a little lower owned in the event that we know Embiid isn't going to play, which certainly appears to be the case at this juncture. The fact that Bledsoe's playing really removes any interest I had in George Hill. Although, I mean, certainly, if you're building a lot of tournament lineups, I have no issue having some George Hill who could, by extension, pick up some minutes here. You could have Sterling Brown, not to be confused with excellent actor Sterling K. Brown, pick up, some extra time as well off the bench, but those now become much more specious plays. If Bledsoe had been out, this would have been a really interesting party where we have to talk about Sterling Brown and George Hill and Tony Snell, and I had a whole rotation planned, which sadly I don't get to use now. But Bledsoe, my favorite guy here. If you're saying I can play a buck, it's probably Bledsoe first for me, and don't completely sleep on Brolo. It's just a usage thing. I can see it going a number of ways, but there's just a real chance that he takes 12 3-pointers again and makes 7 of them again. That is something that is much more likely to happen. When the offense slows down and falls into more of a half-court environment, which is going to be the case here, sans Giannis. But just additionally with all that extra usage to go around, so I'd want some exposure there as well. We like our chances this game to stay close a lot, so my favorite Wizards, I really like Bradley Beal, but it's probably going to be Otto Porter for me. At all his prices, it's a lot of people have expressed reticence, reluctance to me talking about Otto Porter today, and it's just not the same Otto Porter with no Markieff and no John Wall. And I don't think people just sort of get that. He goes from being spot-up shooter in the corner who just, if Wall's having a driving game, doesn't get used, or if Markieff is taking it, just his usage is going to be double what it was for most of those years. And in the rare time Beal isn't on the court, he ends up really running the show, plays down more, so his rebound sign just comes up. So he's just a much, much better player than the auto. Well, I guess he's the same player, but he's just in a much more advantageous and potentially upside situation. So I'm a big Otto Porter fan. He would be my favorite guy to play on this team. After that, Beal, again, site dependent, obviously, but just all the upside in the world there, and should devolve into a game that I actually like him a little bit more, and just 8,600, especially on DK, great price. But he's expensive enough that, you're a little less worried he's going to crush your soul. So I would rather play a share of Porter before a share of Beal, and I like them each a little bit more without each other, but I like them both with each other plenty of times where you end up stacking this game, which really isn't hard to imagine because people are going to play a lot of Middleton and a lot of Bledsoe and a lot of Ersan and so on and so forth there. Past that, Trevor Ariza is going to be the forgotten man and certainly still has an upside game in him. That's really just tournaments for me, but makes a very interesting pivot off Porter and Middleton and other guys in that range/position. And I wouldn't completely sleep on Jeff Green either, who I still think gets 30 minutes in a game we're trying to stack and get interesting pieces of. Again, whenever you're looking at this game, you're looking to pick up a guy who the ownership is down and the upside is similar, and you can certainly get that with Jeff Green. I would rather Jeff Green than say Tomas Satoransky in this game.
So while you were taking everybody through that stuff, Joel Embiid has switched into sneakers and is now shooting on the court.
Big fuck.
What an asshole.
What a dick. All right.
Well, Emac speculates that this is slow revenge for when Atlanta used to sit guys against Philly and there was a Horford triple-double. So trust Emac, our old pal Emac.
That's okay. That's incredibly out of left field, but all right. That's revenge against a guy who hasn't been on the team in a couple of years. Gotcha.
It's a long revenge play. You got to build those narratives over time. But all right, so Embiid in, how does that affect things for you then?
Best served cold. Embiid in. Obviously, Muscala goes by the wayside. Bolden goes by the wayside. It's still an exceptional matchup, but it's not completely ridiculous. Like, it's almost impossible to imagine Butler or Simmons not having a ceiling game, in this matchup against Atlanta. Now you have Embiid in. Blowout becomes more likely. We've sort of covered it. So I don't know. Have we actually seen Embiid in, or we just see Embiid has put on his sneakers? Like,
there are photos of him in his sneakers putting up jumpers, but we have not officially gotten a ruling on him now. And reporters talking about Joel Embiid put shoes on, is putting up a bunch of shots because why would anything ever be simple?
Yeah, Ilyasova is starting, so feel free to get Ilya with it.
I'm playing too much Ilyasova, so I would have rather have gone to some Muscala there. But if Joel Embiid's flip-flops are cast aside, then like Matt Riddle's entrance in NXT, then I don't know what to do.
That's a nice reference.
Enough 1 for 10 people out there who are enjoying the collected works of NXT. But...
No chance it's as high as 1 in 10, but that's okay.
No chance.
No chance.
We will take you guys through the ownership projections at the halfway point coming up in 5 minutes for a little halftime Daddy Likes. Eddie, what other spots are you looking at that you're finding key? You've talked at length about the 2 big games up front. Which other ones are you looking at which have news which could affect the value?
Let's see. I really like Domantas Sabonis. Redick is in. So, I like JJ Redick now. I don't know. I'm looking at Yahoo at the moment. Let me see. It's $20 on Yahoo. So, I mean, that's just a tournament play where there's a lot of other guys who are just underpriced around that price. He's in the mid-5s, FanDuel and DraftKings, I think. Yeah, I mean, if I had 150 lineups, I'd run out, probably like 10 JJ Redick at this point, which is 7%, and I still think gets me above the field. But I definitely like some JJ Redick. This is an awesome spot for him. So, that's certainly worth mentioning. Some other spots I do really like Domantas Sabonis.
Yes, I got it.
That entire Knicks game is going to be a sneaky source of value. So Von Lon, the Knicks, probably my favorite guy. We'll get there in a second. But as far as the Pacers go, again, to a certain extent, no extra no huge analysis on no Miles Turner, so we like Domantas Sabonis. But the matchup with the Knicks is exceptional. We're in New York. They have none of their regular centers, basically. I mean, they have Luke Cornett, but no Mitch, no Cantor helps out a little bit. And unsurprisingly, he's been exceptional against the Knicks already this year. They played twice this year, and both games were Miles Turner games where he came off the bench. In both games, he played 21 minutes and change, and I think he had like 37 and 45 fantasy points in 21 minutes in each game. So, yep, like me, no reason not to like Domantas Sabonis. I do think he's worth the spend up, even with the increased price. If you don't go there, I really like Thad Young. Again, exceptional matchup. Just a few extra minutes come in the absence of Miles Turner, priced around 5,700, still too cheap. So those are my two favorite guys, certainly to look at on this team. I would still have some exposure to Kyle O'Quinn. Like, it is really not hard to see the narrative where, the Knicks maybe get blown out here and Kyle O'Quinn plays the last 20 minutes of the game and gets 26 minutes total and plays 41 fantasy points. So risky as hell, obviously. Could play 13 minutes and give you 7 fantasy points, but there is a giant upside there, and with so much other chalky value, especially around the bigs, it's a pretty fun tournament pivot away from, say, Ersan Ilyasova.
Yeah, and also, and he's played for a lot of teams, so it's probably not super relevant for Kyle O'Quinn, but it is a revenge game. I don't think he was happy to leave New York. I think that was one spot where
I don't think he was happy with the time he got. So sure. And he's going back into New York, which is how I prefer my revenge. So, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a couple places you want to, like, there's a lot of guys you can talk about in this game having a spot. You can certainly, Depot is cheap. Certainly, if this game goes full, you can see Depot hitting an upside. I don't want to suggest anything else. I would just rather play one of the bigs who I think have actually a pretty similar upside and cost several $1,000s less if I'm looking to get my first piece of this game. But, once I'm building second pieces and doing different things with this game or stacking it, definitely Depot would get in there. Moutier is too cheap. Last game, the minutes fell away, but I think this game, still very likely he gets back up to 35 minutes. Not the best matchup, but makes sense in tournaments. Tim Hardaway's down to 5,400 on FanDuel. Obviously, he can get on top of that if necessary. But Valna, my favorite guy in the Knicks, he's going to get all the backup 5 time, we would think. Is going to start at the 4. The real bugaboo with him has been, will he get the time? As you look at his minutes over the last 4 games, it's like 18, 30, 18, 30. At this point, I'm pretty sure, barring significant foul trouble, you're going to get your 30. And he's just a really good point per minute producer. Been fine in the previous matchup. So Vonleh, the first guy I would look at here. Would rather play Noah Vonleh than Luke Cornett for what's about, he's like $1,500 less on both sides. I have no issue playing Cornett. Cornett also $10 on Yahoo, which, is the functional equivalent of being well below the caps on FanDuel or DraftKings. So that maybe makes more sense there. But, quite a bit of love for those guys.
We're going to go to the ownership stuff in 1 second, but real fast, also Rodney Hood was ruled in on a minutes limit. Probably worth addressing that real fast because Jordan Clarkson has been a great source of value recently. How does that affect things for you with Rodney Hood back in the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to be dealing with a slightly chalkier, Jordan Clarkson, which he's always been certainly a frenetic quantity, so it's difficult to be super excited about the fact that his ownership will have picked up significantly. But everyone on this team really, really cheap, and if you're going to run, James Harden, it's nice. There's some correlation to have some Cavs just because if this game stays close. And again, my last show I thought was really good. Did some really tough fades on Neto and a couple other guys. One of the things I got wrong was I predicated a whole lot of my advice on the fact that I thought the Pelicans were going to demolish the Cavs. They kept that game close. So, if they keep this game close, you're correlating your James Harden with when you play James Harden, you would like him to play 40 minutes and not 33. So you want this game to stay close. So it just correlates with having anyone on this team. And again, Hood is only 4,200. That's not out of play for me for a guy who can jack up some shots. But Sexton's 4,500 or less everywhere. But my favorite guy on this team would actually be Tristan Thompson. I like him a lot. I think he plays 34, 35 minutes. He's down to 5,800 on DK. Has been very up and down against Capella, but when they play, this is the run back for this year. This is the last 2 times we're going to get this East-West matchup. And he got over 50 fantasy points when he played the Rockets earlier this year. So, yeah, so certainly Tristan Thompson, probably the guy on the Cavs I want to go to the most. But Clarkson, price now up, obviously, 6,000 and 5,700. Yeah, obviously can certainly do it. He's got, 35 to 40, like 3 games in a row. Someone asked how about Maxi Kleber as a pivot for value. Yeah, I like that a lot. Again, it's difficult to know what we're going to do. We have a lot of sample size of what this team does when Dennis Smith is out. They either go a little guard heavier and frequently start, say, Jalen Brunson, although sometimes you'll see Dorian Finney-Smith or something else in there, or they'll go against larger teams that they will generally run Maxi Kleber in there in the starting lineup. So I like Maxi Kleber. I have him right now for 27 minutes and 28 fantasy points. So I think I prefer sort of the upside I get with Ersan, but with his minutes limited now, I certainly like Maxi Kleber as a move there in that game with the Timberwolves. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kleber. I think he's actually in a pretty decent spot here. Let's go through the ownership projections, and we'll hit some questions, some of the other arching things that you want to hit. Of course, you can get our ownership projections with promo code LIVEBEFORELOCK. It'll get you 50% off your first month, so it's a pretty strong deal we're offering there. All the ownership projections, Eddie's rankings, and rankings from Osmo, who's a top player in the world for good reason, does pretty well in NBA. If you haven't seen him on top of your tournaments that you've been in. But go ahead, check it out now. 50% off on promo code LIVEBEFORELOCK. Here are the top 5 owned guys. We're going to go through one by one. Eddie, give me your thoughts on James Harden at 31% on DraftKings.
Yep. I still want more. So Daddy likes. It's always weird because I feel like if I'm saying I like 31%, but I think it should be higher than 31%. He's easily my highest scoring player on the slate by double-digit points, and there's now oodles of value, and just 31% doesn't make sense. I will go on record as saying, with all this value opening up, I think he's owned closer to 40%, but I'd want more than that too, for what it's worth.
Yeah. We'll probably get an update coming for ownership soon as well, but I would agree he probably will go up because of all the value coming along here, some of which we're going to have in the top 5. Here's the opposite end of the spectrum from James Harden, also at 31%, Joe Ingles.
Yeah, Jingles, makes a lot of sense. We talked again. I was happy Howell Neto didn't work out because I probably shit on him more on that Wednesday show than any player the entirety of the year. And now with him missing as well, you just have all these other guys picking up little pieces of distribution. And, number 1 is Donovan Mitchell, but number 2 is Joe Ingles in a matchup in which he's already performed very well several times in a row. I already had him close to, 30 fantasy points as it was. Now I have him closer to 33 or 34, and there's a real upside on top of that if this game manages to stay close. I kind of feel like the Lakers may put up a stinker here, but yeah, I certainly like Ingles quite a bit. He's just in that sort of weird mid-priced range where it's hard to go there over what seems like a more likely super ceiling out of Middleton. Like, I like Ingles, but you're telling me for like $1,000 more I can get Middleton, who I like less than Bledsoe. Like, I like Bledsoe just strictly more than Ingles. I haven't projected for more points. I haven't projected for a higher ceiling, and he's going to be lower owned. I would just rather play Bledsoe. Obviously, different positions, but Middleton, has a real chance of getting 55-60 here. If this game stays close against the Wizards and there's some sort of scoring getting done, he's got a real chance of putting up a huge number. Ingles a pretty rare huge number guy. So I have no issue with anyone playing Ingles. He feels very, very solid. I think he's a tremendous cash game play. I do think his upside is certainly increased in the scenario at home against the Lakers. But, if I'm trying to spike a tournament with 100,000 people in it, and he's going to be more popular, I would probably pivot to those other guys. So in that sense, I'll say Daddy doesn't like Joe.
Just real fast on Ingles, because I think it's worth noting. He did put up 15 shots last game, and that was in a slower paced matchup versus Orlando. So I think some upside on paper at least.
Yeah, it can. Everyone has. I just think let me give you a specific example. So can Ingles, let's say, take 18 shots, make 12 of them, get 3 steals and 8 rebounds and 4 assists and put up 52 fantasy points? Absolutely, that's possible. There's just a much more transparent and slightly less deviated way that Middleton could get there, which would just be he takes 27 shots and he gets the Wizards, which is a matchup I'm super excited about, a little more so than even the Lakers, who actually defensively have gotten pretty strident over the last couple of weeks, sans LeBron. So I just prefer the Middleton thing a little bit, and I prefer Bledsoe without Giannis. Now, my concern with Bledsoe is that he wasn't 100% coming into the game, so that's a wrinkle of doubt, and he's played really poorly recently. I mean, really poorly. But what I expect to be significantly lower ownership than these other guys, he would be my favorite of them for that reason. But yeah, there's a much higher than normal chance that you get 50 out of Joe Ingles. On a normal night, I would say the odds of Ingles giving you 50 is 2%. Tonight, I would say it's like 12%. I just think for Bledsoe, it's 25%, and for Middleton, it's 30 or 35%. So yep. I just am a little more inclined to look there. But yeah, there's any number of ways Ingles can be fine tonight. I just slightly hedge towards those other guys.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's go to number 3 on the list, Clint Capella at 26% ownership on DraftKings.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. He's just way too underpriced there. He's 91 on FanDuel and 77 or 78 on DK, and it's just an extension of the James Harden treatment and just the guaranteed minutes. And I think that's a fine number. I'd probably want to be a little over that because there aren't a ton of centers I love. So I'll go. Daddy would like to have a little more than that. Yeah.
Luke Cornett coming in at number 4, 25%.
Yeah, he's 4,400 there. Again, I like him a lot. I do think he beats that price. I think you're looking at 27, 29 minutes. But again, the matchup, not quite as good. Not really good at all, frankly, relative to some of these other ones we're talking about. And I really like the leverage play of playing Vonleh instead. So in one lineup, I don't like it. That being said, I think having an obviously underpriced Cornett makes a ton of sense. So no call on it. In my first lineup, I would probably try to leverage pivot away to Noah Vonleh, but certainly not going to. $4,400 Cornett as the last man standing. Certainly a great price.
Yeah, Vonleh projected to be 9% less owned at 16%, so there's probably some logic in what Eddie's saying there. Domantas Sabonis and Ersan Ilyasova tied for number 5 at 24%.
Yep. Like them both. No strong takes to take there. I probably would be, with everyone else, and except for Giannis for the Bucks now, I'd probably end up under that on Ersan and over that on Sabonis, I would think. But both about where I would expect those numbers to be, and both perfectly tolerable numbers. But really hard for me to see how you don't get a pretty decent game out of Sabonis here. So I like having Sabonis or Thad in each lineup. I like having at least Bledsoe or Middleton in each lineup. I like sort of going through each of these pairings of difficult to imagine how they fail and grabbing at least one.
So going to the premium Slack now, we've got a question from Jay Kelly 13. Thoughts on presumably low-owned Karl Anthony Towns? And also, while you're talking Timberwolves, can you talk to me about Andrew Wiggins? Because I was wrong on him the other day. I fully admit that. I don't know what I'm seeing here, but he played like a different human being entirely in that game. So I'm not sure what to do with him tonight. But thoughts on Towns and Wiggins for me?
Yeah, I was really on Wiggins. Wiggins against Paul George is randomly good, which really leads to sort of talking about this evening's game in that he's a very difficult player to project. He ends up being good against other players for no valid reason, where he just looks switched on, and he ends up being it's just a lot over the neck for him. So he's really difficult for me to project. I have no idea if he'll continue to have the swell of confidence and usage that we saw in that just absolutely monster game under, the first game under Ryan Saunders. I like him. There's still an upside beyond that. I imagine we have him, projected in the mid.
I don't mean to cut in. Joel Embiid will not play tonight.
Okay, so back to Moose Plan.
What a bastard.
Okay, but thankfully we already discussed this, so he got to, and plus he got to discuss some game theory there. But yeah, let the Moose loose, I think is the that's funny. I was searching his price somewhere and I actually put an MOOS, and it's like, no, that's there's a U in there. So yeah.
Sorry, keep talking about the Timberwolves. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that seemed like relevant.
I think I would rather play DeAndre Jordan than Karl Anthony Towns. This is a slightly better defensive Karl Anthony Towns than we've seen in a while. This is a better defensive team, but looking at my notes, DeAndre Jordan has my highest possible one-on-one center ranking matchup against Karl Anthony Towns. He's looked really, really good against him. I like having Dennis Smith Jr. out as slowing down the game a little bit more, and his price, especially on FanDuel at 7,300, I would rather play that number for DeAndre Jordan, who I've projected for 40, than spend $3,000 more to get to Towns, who I have a hair over 50. I don't have any issue with Karl Anthony Towns. He's always going to carry a big ceiling on this team, but we have Teague back, we have Rose back, we have possibly invigorated Wiggins. I just don't think you need to do it.
Yeah, I would agree there. You've seen Wiggins' usage has gone up to 35% in 2 straight games. Yeah. Towns has gone down proportionally. And yeah, Rose being back in the mix makes me worry for both of those guys a little bit there. Let's see. Any good questions? Thoughts on Gobert and Mitchell? We talked about Mitchell a little bit, but give your full thoughts on the Jazz there with Joe Ingles and Mitchell looking particularly good.
Yeah, I think with everything else going on, just the role we can expect for Donovan Mitchell at home is getting undersold. It's one of the reasons I have trouble getting towards $8,500, $8,200 Oladipo against the Knicks. I'd really like I probably prefer Donovan Mitchell, point Donovan against the Lakers. We got a lot of it at the end of last year, where we actually saw this exact lineup for the entire Rockets playoff series. Royce O'Neal is not out of play. I have Royce O'Neal at 31 minutes. So just 31 minutes, $3,500. You don't need a ton for that to work out. He's not super productive basketball player. I don't like the matchup incredibly, but Royce is a reasonable choice at that price, certainly. But yeah, I like Donovan Mitchell quite a bit. It's 8,100 is a tough price. Again, it's tough in a world where Beal is only a few $100 more on DraftKings, and you're saving $2,000 by playing Eric Bledsoe, and well over $1,000 playing Chris Middleton. Those guys with all the extra units, all the other usage, Sans Giannis against the Wizards. So it's kind of hard to get there, but yeah, there's. I have Donovan Mitchell projected for over 40, and certainly it's a spot where you could randomly pick a 55 out of him.
Yeah, going to the premium Slack for some more questions here. Who would be your top point per dollar point guard play on a FanDuel GPP?
Eric Bledsoe. That's pretty easy. And then beyond that, Ben Simmons, or 9,300 there, is still a little bit too cheap. Other guys I would have interest in tournaments, of course, Steph. That game somehow stays close. Clay would be my guy from that game. Zach LaVine bonus. Yes, he made, I don't even know how many points earlier this year. He had 50-something points against them earlier this year. That is not apropos of nothing. Royce O'Neal or Pat Connaughton, Yahoo. Royce O'Neal for me, not remarkable. I'm not sure Pat Connaughton plays. So, Royce O'Neal. So, I'll take 30 minutes over Pat Connaughton. Am I wrong that he sat the last... Pat Connaughton has not played in the last 3 games. And
I think the last time Giannis was out, he got a bump up in the rotations. I saw somebody in the premium Slack saying that he got 24 minutes the last time Giannis was out, I believe.
Sure. And yeah, but I think, we certainly want to get some news that he's, it's certain to be in the rotation. But he's been out of the rotation for 3 games. And I don't know how many of those games, I don't know who was in from Sterling Brown, and I would need to see who else was in on those Connaughton games. That's a good question. But I would not play any Pat Connaughton. You need a lot of things to go the right way. And that's probably wrong to play none, because it's not crazy to think that there's a blowout and he closes, even if it doesn't, work perfectly well to start. But there's a real chance he has a very minor role in the rotation, and Royce is going to play, I think, north of 30 minutes. So I will go with Royce at this point. But, the more I think about it, I suppose some Connaughton makes sense. But, you have that whole, I don't know what happens with Connaughton, Snell, Sterling Brown. So I'm really just not sure how that's going to work out. So there's obviously a lot of uncertainty there. And despite the fact that he has randomly banged 2 ceiling games this year, Pat Connaughton not super basketball player. He has some limitations as a player. So Royce for me.
So before we burn through a bunch of questions here and all your either ors, so drop them in there, tag me in the premium Slack so I'll know to go through them. Do you have any other thoughts on the slate that you want to hit on before we go funnel through all these?
Let's see. Muscala will start. We talked about him. We talked about that. We went through there. Again, the biggest news was in those games. I mean, the Milwaukee-Washington game is a brilliant game environment. So, we've talked earlier this year where, against Washington, I was perfectly happy to, stack up Atlanta players. And one time we had 7 of them end up good. So, we have, handled most of the guys that I felt I was significantly different from the field on. I'm looking at I have 6 lineups in front of me, 2 on FanDuel, 2 on Yahoo, 2 on DraftKings, 1 cash and 1 GPP each, and there is not a player in them who we have not discussed already. So to give you an idea of how focused I am on the games in question.
Yeah, you definitely need to focus in a little here on your core with so many options out there. I think, there's a lot of traps, a lot of mines to avoid hitting. Townsend, Redick, or Nurkic and Oladipo for Yahoo?
I would probably, with the Yahoo scoring, barely go to Nurkic and Oladipo.
I would actually agree there.
Same players on DraftKings, I'm probably playing Towns and Redick, but the Yahoo /FanDuel /official NBA terrible 3 for a steal and a block scoring, I would go with the latter of those 2 pairings.
Ed Davis or Kyle O'Quinn?
I'd play Kyle O'Quinn.
Let's see. Have we gotten news on DSJ? Yes, we have. A long time ago.
Yeah,
He's out.
He's out. He's not playing.
Didn't even travel. Bobby Portis or Ersan Ilyasova?
I mean, if somehow they're the same price somewhere, Bobby Portis, I'd have him projected for more points. He's looked good and he's going to be well less owned. Just degree of general interest at their prices as I've seen them, I think I prefer Ersan.
Would you go Ingles over Mitchell?
Well, obviously, setting aside price, I have no issue if you have a lineup with Ingles and not Mitchell. I mean, you're saving $2,000 to $2,400 or what have you. So if you're telling me I could only play one tonight, I think I would probably end up with Ingles for the savings, barely. But no, I like both those plays quite a bit. But at his price, I'd probably play Ingles over Mitchell.
Thoughts on Ed Davis? Actually, I have a couple Ed Davis questions. One about him or Kyle O'Quinn, but also your overall thoughts on Ed Davis. He's had a solid role lately, according to Kwame Nation.
Yeah, he really has been. He's obviously just a rebounding monster. The matchup is not ideal. We have a couple guys coming back healthy for that team. Obviously, we still have Rondé out, so that does, bring with him pretty likely he's going to get low 20s in minutes. I don't have an issue if you want to buy Ed Davis, but we have seen, more towards ceiling games out of him. Last game he had, I want to say 16 rebounds in 22 minutes or something. That's an exceptionally high number. I would probably rather try something like Rodions Kurucs if I was trying to get fun on that team. If I was really trying to get fun on that team, I would actually play D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell has been very, very good against Kyle Lowry. There are certain guys who are immune to the Lowry defense, same as there are a few defenders who have one particular trick, and if it's not good against you, you're very good against them. He's one. Ricky Rubio is another guy who is an exceptional defender against 40% of the league and kind of weak against half of it. It's kind of interesting. But D'Angelo Russell has the highest marks in my tape ratings versus Kyle Lowry, and we have seen that there is a huge upside there. If I ran him, I'd like to play someone back on Toronto for the keep it close correlation, so I'd like to play him and Ibaka, obviously, if we're doing centers against Brooklyn, or I guess Kawhi certainly would not be out of play. But Nets, I would probably look probably D'Angelo Russell first for me, and then Kurucs. Then I think Ed Davis would be the third guy would be interested in pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I'd almost be more interested in going back to Allen here because the minutes have been weird, and Allen had a really strong second half there. And Ed Davis also, this is not a matchup like it was versus the Hawks for Ed Davis. So I think I like Ed Davis too, and he usually pops up my projections because I feel like my projections favor quality rebounding guys, much like PER does. But
yeah, I like Ed Davis a lot. But again, it is a night we can hope for some really exceptional upside even out of some of these value plays. So slightly more inclined towards the other guys we're talking about, but not not so much so that I have an issue if you're buying $4,000 Ed Davis. It's just fine. I think he probably gets you, I'll say 22 minutes and 23 fantasy points, and not an ideal matchup, but disinclined towards it just because of, again, poor matchup, upside. Not sure he sits in the rotation, possible blowout, all of that.
Royce O'Neal or Pat Connaughton for Yahoo?
Yeah, we've been through this again. It's going to be Royce for me. Especially on Yahoo, by the way, where you're getting the FanDuel Yahoo scoring. because he can pick up some steals and blocks. He's an exceptional defender. And Connaughton, I'm not really sure plays. Connaughton, at least there's the variance and the upside where it sort of makes sense firing the weird Trey Burke-esque risk play on him. But if he's anywhere near as popular as he seems to be, as that's our fifth Pat Connaughton question, yeah, I would probably try to look somewhere else.
Would you go Capella or Sabonis at center on DraftKings?
Yeah, we have them projected almost identically for ownership, and I have them very near for points, so it would come down to correlation for me.
Thoughts on Rudy Gobert? He's cheaper than Capella on FanDuel.
Yeah, the FanDuel price is too low for Gobert, and the matchup is just fine. So, I slightly prefer Capella raw points, but where you're saving, I think it's $700 on FanDuel. I think Gobert is absolutely a better player there. I'm fine with that. Collison is in, if someone was looking at that news.
Let's see. Out of the value of Kylo Quinn, oh my God, this is why I shorten every name. Kylo Quinn, Ilyasova, Kleber, O'Neal, and Muscala. Which would you like the most for a DKGPP?
Probably for me, either Kylo Quinn or Mike Muscala. What is it? Muscala. Give me the 5 names again.
Muscala, O'Neal, Kleber, Ilyasova, and Kylo Quinn.
Yeah, I would probably in one lineup play O'Quinn. Understand that, and again, I'm very comfortable with risk, so it's really got a lot to do with what you're thinking. Muscala is probably the answer most people would want to hear because ownership's still to be enough. There's still a real upside. He's getting the start, so the floor is a lot safer. So I would probably play O'Quinn in my first lineup, then Muscala, then Ilyasova. But for most people, I think the advice they sort of want from me is, who should you put in there? And for the normal person, I think Muscala is your better play there. $3,200, giving you a few $100s to play with somewhere else maybe. And there is a real upside. The matchup is transparently good, and I think you get close to 30 minutes. So Muskie, I will answer, even though it's not quite what you asked.
This one, I think we already answered a Capella or Sabonis one. Sorry, love. You're a lovely gentleman. Dunn, Bledsoe, or Rose on FanDuel?
Dunn, Bledsoe, or Rose on FanDuel. For me, Bledsoe not close. Like if you look at Bledsoe games without Giannis, including in tougher matchups, you have in the last couple of years we have there's a 26 and 15 game. There was a triple-double Eric Bledsoe game when Giannis was out. There was there is a giant upside there, and the Q tag next to his name. So yeah, I mean it's going to be Bledsoe for me against any other point guards in his price, certainly. And I don't know what we have his ownership projected at. I mean, you can refresh it, but I bet it's like 15% as opposed to some of the other guys who are going to be almost double that.
Would you go? I'll look that up while you're talking. Would you go? Actually, hold on, I got it. So let's just close the loop here. Bledsoe now one of the chalkiest players on the slate, 28%.
Interesting. I will go ahead and suggest it ends up being lower there due to how bad his form has been recently. So I'll guess that he actually comes in lower than that because he just hasn't looked great. But I don't think that's apropos of much. Some blowouts are involved there. But if that is the case, that's obviously a situation that would end up being much closer for me.
And it's actually got the answer from Love now. Is it Capella or Nurkic on DK? I think you already answered on FanDuel.
Yeah, I would probably be a little more inclined to play Nurkic for the ownership. I like them both quite a bit. I think Capella is a better point per dollar play barely, but in one tournament lineup, I probably play is it worth it Yusuf Nurkic.
Butler or Mitchell for DK cash?
I'll play Mitchell in cash.
Mm-hmm.
I like Butler a lot. I'll play Mitchell in cash.
I think I know the answer to this, but Muscala at 3.2K or Royce O'Neal at 3.4K?
Muscala. I like Royce plenty, but Muscala for me there.
Mitchell or Butler on FanDuel?
That's closer. I'll actually go to Butler on FanDuel because of the scoring difference. Better chance of defensive stats, lower turnovers. I'll actually go that way.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I agree with that. Porter Jr. or Vonleh for PZ men?
I like those guys a lot. It's probably Porter Jr. and Cash. I really like them both in tournaments. But Porter would be a better cash play for me, I think. I really like them both in tournaments. I almost can't choose. I guess I will take Porter between the two of them if you're telling me I have to play one and then I try to play Cornet in that lineup. Sort of how I work it out there.
Joey Ingles or Otto Porter? No site given.
I'll play Otto Porter.
Rank these three for DK GPP: Bradley Beal, Luka Doncic, Kemba Walker.
Beal, Walker, Doncic. Again, I do like all three. I like Doncic in the matchup with Minnesota. Was good there earlier this year. Taking out DSJ certainly helps a little bit and solidifies the floor and the assist total. But I like all three of those plays. But yeah, I'll barely have Beal on top and barely have Doncic on the bottom. But I have them all projected within 1.5, so you're right in there.
Dunn, Urson, and Rivers, or Bledsoe, Kleber, and Herter on FanDuel?
Say again, Dunn, Urson. Sorry.
Dunn, Urson, and Austin Rivers, or Bledsoe, Kleber, and Herter on FanDuel?
Bledsoe, Kleber, and Herter.
Quinn, McConnell, or Kleber?
Oh, Quinn in a tournament. Kleber and Cash.
Ed Davis or Taj Gibson for a FanDuel GPP?
Taj Gibson.
Brogdon or Ingles?
Ingles and Cash, Brogdon in a tournament.
Another Ingles and Porter question. Dunn, you already asked this one. Damn it. If you can't type the answer, that's an annoying request, sir. Let's go to YouTube. Let's see. Oh, computer issues? Hold on. Never mind. Is the stream working?
Might
be a problem.
I believe so. I have no indications on my side that it is not.
Okay. Yeah, people on YouTube grousing that it's not. Whatever. Let's see, any good questions in the Slack coming up? Nothing else in the Slack. Kuzma or Butler? There's one.
Kuzma or Butler? Butler in both. I like Kuzma plenty, but that last game showed pretty clearly how he has issues picking up peripherals from time to time.
Okay. Lynn or Cornet?
It's a good one. I will take Cornet and Cash, Lynn in tournaments.
And Muscala or Ilyasova?
I'll take Moose in both.
All right. I think we got all the main ones here, at least that I can see. Yeah. Any last minute tips for the folks out there? Which guy would you really want in? Like, if you're making a lineup right now, which guy would you be like, I have to put him in? We only have 30 seconds left.
Bledsoe, Sabonis, I think are really the guys I feel really strong about. Again, it'll be interesting to see if I can't wait for this game of Daddy Light, because we are really dealing with the cream of the crop in these first couple games, which is a really refreshing change. But yeah.
Also, apparently you are frozen in an O face on YouTube right now, according to the people.
Interesting. Obviously not
it's
frozen.
Like cutting in and out is what they're saying. I don't know. I don't know what's going out on the air and what's not, but hopefully only the good stuff and the bad picks are gone forever.
Okay. Well, let me start looking at ownership, and then pull up the Slack here. I don't know why we would have a stream issue. I don't have any. I don't believe I have any internet issues on my side. Pages are refreshing fine. Stream looks fine in OBS. So I'm not sure quite what's going on there.
Could be a YouTube thing, but yeah, I don't know. Our viewership dropped to not much. Oh well.
Well, thankfully we made it through apparently the majority of the show before that happened.
I think we set a viewership record, but I can't confirm that because I wasn't paying close enough attention.
Oh, that's kind. That was just people being sympathetic because I had a tough couple of days. They're just being nice. They'll go back to their normal shows tomorrow, but they came out to...
They were just paying their respects. They were showing up just to drop some flowers and then head out for our boy Champ.
That's nice. Bledsoe 22%. Yeah, again, that's about what I figured. You had Bledsoe 22, Middleton 34 on the largest DK tournament. Urson 35, which again is going to end up being a butt ton bigger than whatever we get Moose at. Let's see what we got. Number 1, Ben Simmons 35. Number 2, Urson 35. Number 3, Brogdon 35. Yeah, I definitely don't like that relative to the other guys. Don't get me wrong, I'd like him quite a bit here, but I'd have him after Middleton and Bledsoe for the idea of spiking an upside. Number 4, Muscala 29. So didn't get that much better. Bledsoe all the way down to 22. So I still do like that the most. Butler at 22, same number. Beal at 19. Porter at 15. Daddy likes quite a bit. Rolo at 9, Daddy likes quite a bit. John Collins at 8, Daddy likes quite a bit. Jeremy Lin at 7, Daddy really likes. Casualty of all the late news. TJ McConnell, 5.7, great. Bolden, 5%, great at 5%. Furcon, 4.7, Horter, 4%, love that. Trevor Ariza, 3.7, love that. Trae Young, 3.6, love that. Mahinmi, 3.3. Wilson Chandler, 2.68. Jeff Green, 2.6, love that. Bembry, 2.4, like that. Tomas, 2.2. JJ Redick, 2 flat, love that. Thomas Bryant, 1.7, love that. And Joel Embiid, 1.64%. Congratulations, you played yourself.
All right, there we go. I think we were just broadcasting for ourselves because everybody on YouTube says it's been frozen. So
okay, maybe they can still hear us. I don't even know, but
yeah,
I guess
hopefully.
we will end the show. So if anyone can hear me, thank you all so very much for your industry over the last couple days, and let's get together with Josh and figure out why this shit is happening, because not cool.
So hopefully we're on, but if you can hear us, we appreciate you. If you can't, doesn't matter because you can't hear it anyway. So have a good weekend, guys. Good luck. See you again soon.